Fables 185 and 186 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt, from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 185. The Two Rats, the Fox, and the Egg. To Madame de la Sablière. Iris, it were easy quite verses in your praise to write, were't not that scornful you refuse the plaintive homage of my muse, in that unlike your sisters fair, who any weight of praise can bear. Most women dote on flattery's lies, nor are they on this point unwise. For if it be a crime, 'tis one that gods and monarchs fail to shun. That nectar which, the poets say, is quaffed by him who holds the sway, or thunders, and which kings on earth get drunk on from their earliest birth, is flattery, Iris, flattery such as you'll not even deign to touch. No, Iris, you have rich resources in genuine wit and wise discourses, sometimes half earnest, sometimes gay. The world believes it not, they say. Let the poor world think what it may. In conversation I maintain that truth and jokes are equal gain. Pure science well may be the stay of friendly converse, but the ray of mirth should ever and anon electric light friends union. Discourse, when rightly comprehended, is with 1,000 graces blended, and much resembles gardens sweet, where Flora's various beauties meet, and where the bees search every bloom, and from each bush bring honey home. Allowing this to be so, let some theories in my tales be met, theories philosophic new, engaging, subtle. Have not you heard speak of them? Their holders say that animals are mere machines, and move but by mechanic means, that move or gambol as they may. They move, but blindly have no soul, no feeling heart, no self-control, but are like watches which, set going, work on without their object knowing. If we should open one of these, what is't the eye within them sees? A score of tiny wheels we find. The first is moved, then close behind a second follows, then a third, and so on till the hour is heard. To hark to these philosophers, the heart is such, some object stirs a certain nerve, and straight again a fellow nerve endures the strain, and so on till the sense it reaches, and some deep vital lesson teaches. But how's it done? These theorists cry. 'Tis done by pure necessity, that neither will nor even passion assist in it in any fashion. That, moved by some inherent force, the beast is sent to run the course of love and grief, joy, pain, and hate, or any other varied state. A watch may be a watch and go, compelled by springs, but 'tis not so with us, and here 'twere wise to ask Descartes to aid us in our task. Descartes, who in the times of eld had for a deity been held, and who between mere men and spirits holds such a place by special merits, as twixt man and oyster has that patient animal, the ass. He reasons thus, and boldly says, of all the animals that dwell on this round world, I know full well my brain alone has reason's rays. Now, Iris, you will recollect 'twas taught by us, that older science, on which we use to have reliance, that when beasts think, they don't reflect. Descartes goes farther, and maintains that beasts are quite devoid of brains. This you believe with ease, and so can I, until to woods I go, just when perchance some motley crew with dogs and horns a stag pursue. In vain it doubles and confounds, with many a devious turn, the hounds. At length this ancient stag of 10, discovering all its efforts vain, and almost wholly worn and spent, drives by main force from covert near, athwart the dogs some younger deer, to tempt them off by fresher scent. What reasoning here the beast displays, its backward tracks on beaten ways, its numerous schemes, its scent to smother, and skill at length to thrust another on danger almost at its feet, for some great party chief were meet, and worthy of some better fate than death from dogs insatiate. 'Tis thus the red-legged partridge sprung by pointer strives to save her young, and yet unfledged, with piteous cries and lagging wing, she feigns to rise, runs on, then halts, then hurries on again, and dog and hunter tempts across the plain. And when her nest is far enough behind, she laughs at both and skims along the wind. 'Tis said that beings have been found in distant lands, in northern climes, who still in ignorance profound are steeped as in primeval times. But only of the men I speak, for their four-footed creatures break the force of streams by dams and ridges, and join opposing banks by bridges. Beams mortised well with beams their toil resists the stream's attempt to spoil. Each labourer with the other vies, and old ones guide, young energize. Chief engineers the whole survey, and point out aught that goes astray. Pluto's well-ordered state could never have vied with these amphibians clever. In snows they build their houses high, and pass o'er pools on bridges dry. Such is their prudence, art, and skill, whilst men like us around them still, if they perchance should have the whim a distant shore to reach, must swim. Now, spite of all this evidence convinces me of beavers' sense, but still my point to make more clear, I will a story here relate, which but lately met my ear, from lips of one who rules in state. A king, I mean, and one whose glory soars high on wings of victory. The Polish prince, whose name alone spreads terror round the Turkish throne. That king can lie not is well known. He says then that his frontiers wide are edged by wilds where beasts reside, who warfare wage and veterate, and to their sons transmit their hate. These beasts are fox-like, says the king, and to their wars such arts they bring, that neither this nor any age has seen men with like skill engage. All pickets, sentinels, and spies, with ambuscades and treacheries, that she who from Styx's entrails came, and unto heroes gives their fame, invented has for man's perdition, these beasts employ with erudition. To sing their battles we should have Homer restored us from the grave, and oh, that he who Epicurus rivals once more could reassure us, that whatever beasts may do is to mechanic means but due, that all their minds corporeal are, that building houses, making war, they are but agents weak and blind of some mere watchspring in the mind. The object which their sense attacks, returning fills its former tracks, and straightway in their bestial pates the image seen before creates, without that thought or sense or soul have o'er the thing the least control. But men a different station fill, and scorning instinct, use their will. I speak, I walk, and feel within something to godlike power akin. Distinct from all my flesh and bone, it lives a life that's all its own, yet o'er my flesh it rules alone. But how can soul be understood by what is merely flesh and blood? There lies the point, the tool by hand is guided. Who guides the hand has not yet been decided. Ah, what is that strange power which wings the planets on their heavenly way? Doth each some angel lord obey? And are my spirit's secret springs moved and control the self-same way? My soul obeys some influence, I know not what it is nor whence. That secret must forever lie hid by God's awful majesty. Descartes knew just as much as I. In other things he may supplant all men, he's here as ignorant. But Iris, this at least I know, that no such lofty souls endow the The beasts of whom I've made example, of soul man only is the temple. Yet must we to the beasts accord some sense the plant world can't afford, and even plants have humble lives. But let me add one story still, and let me know how much your skill of moral from its facts derives. Two rats seeking something to eat found an egg. For such folks to have something to eat is sufficient, and seldom or never you'll find that they beg of the gods turtle soup or French cook proficient. Full of appetite, nimbly down they sat to eat, and soon from the shell would have drawn out the meat, when a fox in the distance appeared to molest them, and a question arose which most greatly distressed them. No other, as you may suppose, but the way the egg from Sir Reynard's keen snout to convey, to drag it behind them, or roll it on floor, to pack it behind them, or shove it before, were the plans tried in turn, but were all tried in vain, when at length the old mother of arts made it plain that if one on his back held the egg in his paw, the other from danger could readily draw. The plan was successful in spite of some jolting, and we leave the two sages their pleasant meal bolting. Who shall after this declare that beasts devoid of reason err? For my part, I'll to beasts allow the sense that dwells in childhood's brow. Reason from childhood's earliest years in all its acts and ways appears, and so it seems to me quite plain that without soul there may be brain. I give to beasts a sort of mind, compared to ours a league behind. Some matter I would subtilize, some matter hard to analyze. Some atom's essence lights extract, fire subtlest of all things in fact. The flames that out of wood arise enable us to form some thought of what the soul is. Silver lies involved in lead, beasts' brains are wrought so that they think and judge no more. They judge imperfectly, 'tis sure, no ape could ever argue then. Above all beasts I'll place us men, for to us man a double treasure belongs, that sense which in some measure to all things living here below, the wise and foolish, high and low, is common, and that holier spirit which men with seraphim inherit. And oh, this loftier soul can fly through all the wondrous realms of sky, on smallest point can lie at ease, and though commenced shall never cease things strange but true in infancy. The soul must dim and feeble be, but ripening years its frame develop, and then it bursts the gross envelope, which still in fetters always binds in men and beasts the lower minds. End of Fable 185. Fable 186. The Cormorant and the Fishes. Through all the country far and wide, in pools and rivers incessantly diving, a cormorant greedy his table supplied, on their finny inhabitants so daintily thriving. But at length there came a day when all his strength gave way, and the cormorant, having to fish for himself, unskilled to use nets which we mortals employ, the fish for our own selfish use to decoy, began soon to starve, with no crumb on the shelf. What could he do now? Necessity, mother, who teaches us more than we learn when at school, advised the poor bird to go down to a pool, and addressing a crayfish, to say to him, "Brother, go tell your friends a tale of coming sorrow. Your master drains this pool a week tomorrow." The crayfish hurried off without delay, and soon the pool was quivering with dismay. Much trouble, much debate, at length was sent a deputation to the cormorant. "Most lordly Webfoot, are you sure the vent will be as you have stated? If so, grant your kind advice in this our present need." The sly bird answered, "Change your home with speed." "But how do that?" "Oh, that shall be my care, for one by one I'll take you to my home, a most impenetrable secret lair, where never foe of finny tribe has come, a deep wide pool of nature's best, in which your race may safely rest. The fish believed this friendly speech, and soon were born, each after each, down to a little shallow crib confined, in which the greedy bird could choose them to his mind. And there they learnt, although too late, to trust no bills insatiate. But after all, it don't much matter, a cormorant's throat or human platter. Whether a wolf or man digest me, doesn't seem really to molest me. And whether one's eaten today or tomorrow, should scarcely be any occasion for sorrow. End of Fable 186. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 187 and 188 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Fable 187. The Husband, the Wife, and the Robber. A husband, loving very tenderly, most tenderly, his wife, was treated ill by her. Her coldness caused him misery. No look, no glance, no, not a friendly word, not e'en a smile, such as she gave her bird, but cold looks, frowns, and peevish answers still. He did not Venus nor yet Hymen curse, nor blame his destiny and cruel lot, yet daily grew the evil worse and worse. Although he loved her every hour the more, it is so now, and has been so of yore. In fact, he was a husband, was he not? One night, as he lay moaning in his sleep, a robber entered, and, struck dumb with fear, the fretful wife, too frightened e'en to weep, sprang to her husband's arms, and sheltered there. Defied all sorrow, trouble, danger near, as her heart softened, and burst forth the tear. "Friend robber," said the husband, "but for thee I had not known this boundless happiness. Take all I have. I give thee liberty. Take house and all, to prove my gratitude. Thieves with much modesty are not endued. The robber took sufficient, I confess. From this I argue that fear is so strong, it conquers hatred, and love too sometimes. Yet love has triumphed over passion's throng. Witness the lover who his house burnt down, so he might win hope's brightest laurel crown, by rescuing her, the lady he loved long, and so secure her heart. I like this story. It strikes my fancy very pleasantly. It is so Spanish in its tone, I glory in love so chivalrous and mettlesome, and hold it grand, so will all times to come. 'Twas not by any means insanity. Fable 188. The Shepherd and the King. Our lives are spoiled by demons twain, turn in, turn out, by each in season. By each with reckless force is slain that which we mortals call our reason. And if you ask their name and state, I'll name God Love, the potentate, for one, and for the other I'll name Ambition, Love's half brother, who, not seldom, Love defeats, and reigns within his choicest seats. All this I soon could prove, but now that which I wish to tell is how a shepherd by a king was sent for, and what this royal deed was meant for. The tale belongs to distant ages, and not to those which fill these pages. A numerous flock that filled the plain, and brought the owner heaps of gain, through shepherd's care and industry, once met a sapient monarch's eye. Pleased with such skill and thrift, he said, "Good shepherd, to rule men thou art bred. Leave now thy sheep, come, follow me, accept my widest satrapy." And so our shepherd, who before had scarce had friend but hermit poor, and very seldom had in view aught but his sheep and wolf or two, was with the viceroy's sceptre graced, nor was he by this change misplaced, for nature had endowed his mind with funds of great good sense, and how to govern humankind he amply learned from thence. End of Fable 188, This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 189 and 190 by Jean La Fontaine. Translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Fable 189. The Two Men and the Treasure. A man of cash and credit shorn, the devil only in his purse, resolved to hang himself one morn, since death by hunger might be worse. A king of death which pleases not those curious in their final taste, a rope and nail he quickly got, and fixed them to a wall in haste. The wall was weak and very old, with the man's weight it crumbling fell, when out there came a stream of gold, the treasure that he loved so well. He did not stay to count, but ran, pale penury no more he feared, when in the miser came, poor man, to find his wealth had disappeared. "Gold gone! This court's my only wealth," he cried. "Now I have lost all hope." And so straightway he hanged himself. How change the fortunes of that rope! The miser saves his wealth for those who may be prudent, may be thieves. Into the grave perhaps it goes. Who knows the changes fortune weaves? For Lady Fortune mocks outright at human nature's dying pangs, and if by you or me made tight the rope, she laughs that some one hangs. Fable 190. The Shepherd and his Flock. Alas! I see another one of my poor foolish flock is gone. The wolf, relentless day by day, makes still another sheep his prey. In vain I count them, oft and oft, 10 times 100, they're so soft that they have let my bob be torn by wolfish jaws. Ah me, forlorn! My darling Bob would follow me, in town or in the country, up and down, over all the world, with tread for tread, if I but showed a bit of bread. A furlong of my step he knew, and to my piping time kept true. Alas, poor Bobby! When at last this funeral discourse had passed, and Robin's fame was duly sounded, the shepherd, by his flock surrounded, addressed them all, ram, lamb, and sheep, and said that if they'd only keep united, never wolf would dare their woolly-coated throats to tear. The flock declared, with solemn bleat, they all their master's views would meet, form ever one united band, and chase Sir Wolf from out the land. Delighted at their brave reply, Guillot regaled them sumptuously. But, sad to say, before the night, there happened a disaster new. A horrid wolf appeared in sight, and off the timid creatures flew. In truth, 'twas a mere shadow, but the ant's a wolf in Lilliput. Bad soldiers you in vain address. Heroic aims they all profess. But let the slightest danger show, in spite of generals, off they go. End of Fable 190. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 191 and 192 by Jean de La Fontaine. Translated by Walter Thornbury and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 191. The Kite and the Nightingale. A daring thief, a kite by name, spread dire alarm o'er hill and dale. Ain little children cried for shame when he pounced on a nightingale. The bird of spring for life prayed well, I'm fit for songs and not for eating. Oh, hear my notes and I will tell my tale of Tyreus, still repeating. Tyreus, is that good food? Then said the kite. No, no, was the reply. He was a mighty king who made his love to me with vow and sigh. His cruel love was strong, too strong. 'Twas mad, 'twas criminal. Now, sire, let me transport you with my song, a song so sweet you must admire. Not having eaten all the day, the kite had other views of things. Thus, what's the use of music, pray? I, too, can talk of mighty kings. When you take kings, or kings take you, sing to them and their pretty dears, I'm hungry and know what to do. An empty stomach has no ears. End of Fable 191. Fable 192. The Fish and the Shepherd Who Played on the Clarionet. Tircis, for his loved Annette, played on the clarionet, poured forth strains of music such as the very dead might touch, played and sang beside a stream which through the meadows flowed like some delicious dream. Meanwhile Annette, demure and pretty, with rod and line on fishes bent, stood listening unto Tircis' ditty, which failed to lure them from their element. Still Tircis sang, "Come, come, ye fishes, come, come from the cool depths of your watery home. Forsake your naiad, and see one more fair. Surrender all your lives to Annette's care. She is gentle, she is kind, in her keeping you will find your lives more safe than down below. Safe in a crystal pool, no want you'll know. And should you in her keeping die, your fate I'd suffer willing lie." Now this song was well sung, and the instrument's strains were deliciously sweet, but in spite of his pains, the fishes avoided the charmer's keen hook. Then Tircis lost patience and hastily took a net called a trammel, and sweeping the stream, placed at Annette's disposal trout, grayling, and bream. O shepherds of men and not of sheep, kings who think you can safely keep your subjects in order by rule of right, attend to my counsel, and spread out your nets before the time comes for forlorn regrets, and let them cringe under the rule of might. End of Fable 192. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 193 and 194 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 193. The Man and the Snake. A man once saw a snake and said, "Thou wretched thing, I'll strike thee dead. 'Tis for the general good." And straight the wicked thing, by wicked it be understood, I mean not man, but wretch with sting, for some my meaning might mistake. Well, this base and atrocious snake was placed in sack, and doomed, alack, to death without the aid of jury. But yet the man, despite his fury, to show that he with justice acted, his reasons in these words compacted: "O symbol of all that is base, 'twere a crime to spare one of thy race. For mercy to those that are bad can from foolish ones only be had, and no more shall thy sting or thy teeth, O thou villainous snake, find their sheath." The serpent thus addressed, his counter views expressed, and briefly made reply: "O man, if all must die who graceless are, there's none who would not be undone. Yourself shall be the judge, I'll take from you excuse for me the snake. My life is in your hands, I know, but ponder ere you strike the blow, and see how what you justice call is based on vices great and small. Your pleasure and convenience you'll satisfy at my expense, but pray think not that I am rude if dying I this statement make, that man and not the snake the symbol is of all ingratitude." These words the angry man surprise, he starts aside and then replies: "Your words are nonsense, and to me belongs of right your fate's decree. But nathless let us have resort unto some independent court." The snake assented, and a cow that stood hard by, appealed to, said: "The case is plain, I can't see how the thing should puzzle any head. The snake is right, I'll frankly say, for yonder man for many a day with milk and curd I've amply fed, and long ere this his child were dead, if my rich food his pining son had rescued not from Acheron. And now that I am old and dry, he leaves me wanting grass to die. Sure, had a serpent been my master, it could have been no worse disaster. Thus saying, with an awkward bow, walked off, or rather limped the cow. The man, aghast at this decree, exclaimed, "O snake, it cannot be! The cow is doting, let us place Before this ox our mutual case." The snake assents, and heavily the ox walks up, and by, still ruminating, makes reply to this effect, that after years of painful toil and weariness, that Ceres' wealth man might possess. And here the ox burst into tears. His sole reward had been the goad, when panting with some weighty load. And what was worse, his owner thought, he, ox, was honoured, being bought by cruel butcher to be flayed, and as a prize beast then displayed. The man declared the ox a liar, and said yon oak tree shall be trier. The tree appealed to, made a case redounding unto man's disgrace. Told how he sheltered man from rain, told how he garnished hill and plain, told how he gave man flowers and fruits, and how that when man's will it suits, he cuts him down and burns his roots. The man, convinced against his will, resolved to have his vengeance still, so took the serpent, bag and all, and banged it up against the wall, until the wretched serpent died, and human wrath was satisfied. It is ever thus with the rich and great, truth and reason they always hate. They think that all things here below solely for their convenience grow, and if any this simple truth denies, they call him sulky growler of lies. And this being so, when you wish to teach the truth to people, keep out of their reach. End of Fable 193. Fable 194. The Tortoise and the Two Ducks. A tortoise once, with an empty head, grown sick of her safe but monotonous home, resolved on some distant shores to tread. It is ever the cripple that loves to roam. Two ducks, to whom our friend repaired, to gossip o'er her bold intent, their full approval straight declared, and pointing to the firmament, said, by that road, 'tis broad and ample, we'll seek Columbia's mighty range, see people's laws and manners strange. Ulysses shall be our example. Ulysses would have been astounded at being with the scheme confounded. The tortoise liking much this plan, straightway the friendly ducks began to see how one for flight unfitted might through the realms of air be flitted. At length within her jaws they fitted a trusty stick, and seizing each an end, with many a warning cry, hold fast, bore up to heaven their adventurous friend. The people wondered as the cortege passed, and truly it was droll to see a tortoise and her house in the duck's company. A miracle the wondering mob surprises. Behold, on clouds the great Queen Tortoise rises. A queen, the tortoise answered, yes, forsooth. Make no mistake, I am in honest truth. Alas, why did she speak? She was a chattering dunce, for as her jaws unclose, the stick slips out at once, and down amidst the gaping crowds she sank, a wretched victim to her claims to rank. Self-pride, a love of idle speaking, and wish to be for ever seeking a power that nature ne'er intended, are follies close allied, and from one stock descended. End of Fable 194. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 195 and 196 by Jean La Fontaine. Translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Fable 195. The Two Adventurers and the Talisman. I have never heard or read, in annals true or fabled story, that paths of pleasure ever led mortal heroes unto glory. And in proof of this one sees the labours 12 of Hercules. However, once, by talisman induced, a knight conceived the plan of mounting horse and couching lance, and seeking lands of fair romance. accompanied by one he knew. After a time there came in view a post upon the public way, on which was writ, "A moment stay, adventurous knight. If you would see that which no knight has seen before, venture across yon torrent's roar, and from the root of yonder tree yon elephant's huge head of stone raise up, and without resting bear to yonder mountain's crest, which proudly stands alone." Now of these knights one was of those who shudder at your swashing blows. "The torrent's deep and broad," he cried, "and if we reach the other side, we climb unto a mountain's crest, with a stone elephant oppressed. 'Tis true the artist may have wrought his work on such a scale a man might bear it for a yard, then rest. But tell me not that mortal can bear it to yonder mountain's top, not daring once for breath to stay. Perhaps this mystic head is naught but such as one might bear away, and if the latter be the truth, success were honour small, in sooth. The whole thing is so plain a trick, I'll leave it. Come, my friend, be quick." This wise man having passed along, the other crossed his breast, and made a dash across the torrent strong, and found beneath the tree the beast's head laid. He raised it, and with breathless stride he bore it to the mountain's brow, and there, upon a terrace wide, gazed on a city fair that stretched below. "Oomph!" cried the elephant, and then forth swarmed a host of armed men. All other errant knights but this would now have shown some cowardice, but he, so far from turning back, couched lance in rest, and spurred to the attack. But what the hero's great surprise, when all the crowd, with joyful cries, proclaimed him monarch, in the place of one just dead. With modest grace the knight declared he was not fit a crown to wear, and then took it. Sixtus the Pope once said so too, and is it then so bad a thing to be a pope or be a king? But Sixtus said what was not true. Blind fortune to blind courage is a friend, and often he will gain his end who rashly acts, whilst he who tarries, by prudence quite deceived, miscarries. Fable 196. The Miser and his Friend. A miser once, who'd got much money, was puzzled how to hide that honey, for ignorance and love of gain, being ever sisters twain, had left him at a total loss where to secrete his golden dross. And why the miser was so hot to find a place of safety for his hoarded pelf, was simply the great fear that filled his mind that some day he should spend and rob himself. Yes, rob himself by gathering pleasure from the usage of his treasure. Poor miser, how I pity your mistake! Wealth is not wealth unless we use it, and when we do not, we abuse it. Why keep money till the sense of pleasure dies in impotence? To gather gold alone is wretched slaving. To have to watch it makes it not worth having. However this may be, our miser might have found some trusty banker for his gold, but it seemed better, to his purblind sight, to give it to the depth of earth to hold. So with a comrade's aid it soon beneath the turf was laid. But when a little time was past, our miser, going to revisit his buried treasure, found a huge deficit. At first despair oppressed him, but at last he hurried to his comrade, and he said, "To-morrow I shall want your help again. Some bags of gold still in my house remain, and they had better with the rest be laid." The comrade immediately hurried away, and returned all the gold he had taken, intending to grasp the whole lot the next day. But in this he was somewhat mistaken. For the miser, grown wise by the loss of his store, resolved neath the earth to conceal it no more, but to use and enjoy it, and thus the poor thief, by being too clever, came headlong to grief. In my belief there is no ill in playing the rascal to a villain. End of Fable 196. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 197 and 198 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 197, The Wolf and the Peasants. A conscientious wolf one day, if conscientious wolves there be, lamenting he was beast of prey, though such but by necessity, exclaimed, I dreaded far and near, to all a thing of hate and fear, dogs, hunters, and peasants combine to pursue me, and weary out Jove with their prayers to undo me. In England long since a price paid for my head has caused the whole race to be utterly dead. I'm an object of wrath to each ignorant squire, who orders his people to hunt me and kill, and if a child cries, all that mothers require is to mention my name to make it be still. And why this universal spite in all the country round, which never leaves the wolf at rest? Because, perchance, by hunger pressed, to satisfy my appetite, I've eaten scurvy sheep or ass or mangy hound. Ah, well, henceforth I'll eat no living thing, but feed on herbs and water from the spring, or starve and die a cruel, cruel fate, sooner than be a thing of universal hate. Saying these words, a pleasant savour drew our wolf's attention to some shepherds near, feasting on what his wolfish instinct knew had once been lambkin to some mother dear. Ah, ah, he exclaimed, this is strange, by my troth! I'm reproaching myself for each lamb that I've slain, whilst the shepherds and sheepdogs themselves are not loth to regale on roast lamb is abundantly plain. And shall I, then, a wolf, feed on nothing but grass? No, not if I know it, the day shall not pass till a lambkin has gone down my cavernous jaws without waiting for any of cookery's laws. A lamb, did I say? I should just think so rather. I, the mother that bore him, and also his father. Well, the wolf was right, for as long as we feed on animals' flesh, it is surely unjust that we should endeavour to make them recede to the primitive food of a root or a crust. And beasts of prey, we should always remember, know not the use of spit or ember. Shepherds, shepherds, trust to me, the wolf a hermit ne'er can be. And sure the wolf was only wrong when he is weak and you are strong. End of Fable 197. Fable 198, The Rabbits, to the Duc de Rochefoucauld. I have often said, on seeing how men like animals seem to act, that the lord of the earth, a poor frail being, is not much better, in fact, than the beasts whom he rules, and that nature has given to each living creature a sense of morality's force, that its origin owes to the one same source. At that witching hour when day in the brown of the eve melts away, or at that when the long brooding night has just lifted its pinions for flight, I climb up some tree at the edge of a wood, and there, like a Jove so wise and so good, I startle with fear some young rabbits gambolling near. Then the nation of rabbits, which, in tune with its habits, with eyes and ears both open wide, played and browsed on the woodland side, perfuming its banquets with odours of thyme, with a hurry and scurry, tails turned in a hurry, seeks its earth-sheltered burrows, thieves flying from crime. But 5 minutes or so have not vanished when, lo, more gay than before, on the fragrant green floor, a rollicking band, the rabbits are there again under my hand. Ah, we do not in this perceive a picture of the race of men, who, shipwrecked once, will still again the safety of the harbour leave, risking fresh shipwreck from the selfsame wind? True rabbits, they to fortune blind, and trust their wealth and all their store, and of this truth take one example more. When stranger dogs pass through some place where they do not of wont reside, the native dogs at once give chase, with hungry jaws all opening wide, fearing that the intruders may snatch the true owner's food away, and never weary till the intruders are safely driven from their borders. Just so with those whom gracious fates have made the governors of states, and those whom many artful plans have made much favored courtesans. And merchants, men of any kind, in all you'll find this jealous mind. Each one in his several place to the intruder grants no grace. Your fine coquettes and authors are precisely of this character. Woe to the unknown writer who dares publish something bright and new. Poets forgive you any crime if you'll not rival them in rhyme. 1,000 instances of this I might recite, but well I wish that works should never be too long. Moreover, you should always show you think your readers wise, you know. So now I'll close this song. Ah, you to whom I owe so much, whose greatness and whose modesty are in exact equality, who cannot bear that men should touch with praiseful tongues your well-earned fame, who still will blush with needless shame. You who scarcely have allowed that I should make my verses proud, and from critics and from time protect my insufficient rhyme, by heading them with one of those great names which make our nation's pride, our France, whose annals long disclose more famous names than all the world beside. Oh, let me tell the universe that you gave me this subject for my verse. End of Fable 198. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 199 and 200 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 199, The Swallow and the Spider. O Jupiter, who from thy regal brow drew forth Minerva, my old enemy, list to the prayer of a poor spider now. Listen, I pray, to thee. Progna here and there, all day and everywhere, ever skimming, flitting 50 times a day, passes by me sitting in my trimly woven lair, passes by me impudent, and bears away my prey, yes, swallows up the flies that are crowding to my net, which with skilful patience 'tween the laurel boughs I've set. Thus the spider who of yore so artistically wove, but now reduced in rank to the state of humble spinner, regarding every fly as hers of right for dinner, complained in noisy accents unto all-deciding Jove. But in spite of this harangue, still Philomel's swift sister sprang past the luckless spider's door, ever with her mane and might, and with pitiless delight, bearing to her brood incessantly the food which the clamorous little gluttons demanded more and more. But sad it is to tell, still worse was yet to come, for the swallow, skimming, flitting, spied the spider sadly sitting, and snatched her hanging helpless from her once well-ordered home. In this world here below, it is Jupiter's plan 2 tables to spread for 2 different classes. At the one feast the skilful, strong, vigilant man, at t'other starve feeble and ignorant masses. End of Fable 199. Fable 200, The Partridge and the Fowls. Once to a red-legged partridge it befell, amongst a lot of fighting cocks to dwell. Now as the latter are a gallant race, fighting with pleasure for a dame's embrace, the partridge hoped that she would treated be by these brave birds with hospitality. But soon, alas, her hopes were crossed, for oft by angry passions tossed, her fiery hosts with spur and beak would tear her plumage brown and sleek. At first this grieved partridge much, but when as soon she saw her foes inflicting on each other equal woes, she ceased to blame them, for, said she, they're such as Jupiter has made them, and we know that he has planted many various creatures here below, the partridge mild, the gamecock rude and wild. If I could be as I would be, I'd pass my life in gentle company. But what avails these vain regrets? The master here takes partridges and nets, and forces them to live with fowls. We owe to man and not to nature all our woe. End of Fable 200. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 201 and 202 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Eva Davis. The Lion. Through spoil and plunder wealthy grown, a leopard once claimed as his own, in meadows broad and forests steep, full many a steer and stag and sheep. At length, upon some luckless morn, not far away, a lion born received, as usual is with great ones, the compliments well known as state ones. But this once done, King Leopard said to Mr. Fox, his vizier keen, I know you suffer from the spleen, because this lion whelp is bred. But why be fearful, since his father is in death's keeping? Pity rather this orphan child, disconsolate, for he will have a lucky fate if he, instead of seeking strife, can but contrive to save his life. The fox replied, For orphans such, my pity is not overmuch. In fact, two things alone remain, his friendship by some means to gain, or else to kill him, ere he grows too strong for all the world to pose. His horoscope I've duly cast, and find that he will ever be to us the bitterest enemy, but to allies he will cling fast. So now decide, become his friend, or straightway of him make an end. But argued thus, the fox in vain. The leopard slept with all his train, until the lion's whelp full grown spread havoc and made all his own. Then Mr. Fox, with careworn brow, appealed to, said, "'Tis useless now to think of meeting force by force. Suppose to friends you had recourse, they would but eat up all your store, and Master Lion does no more. But, sire, remember that the lion has got 3 friends he can rely on, who ask for neither pay nor food, strength, vigilance, and fortitude. So send him now a sheep or 2, and if that won't answer, lambs a few, and if he's not content with that, a heifer add, both large and fat. For by this means, perchance, you may save something from this beast of prey." Thus spoke the fox, but to his master the advice seemed ill, and thence disaster spread over all the country round. For still, combine as might the states, republics, cities, potentates, they still the lion master found. If you would now the moral know, just to this brief advice attend. If you have let a lion grow, take care that he becomes your friend. The dog whose ears were cut. What have I done, I should like to know, that my master should make me a public show? Amongst other dogs I can never now go. O kings of animals, human race, tyrants, authors of my disgrace, I wish some demon would treat you the same. Thus a young dog reflected, mad with pain, as they cropped his long ears, but his cries were in vain, and he thought himself lost, but he found, one fine day, that his loss was a gain. For, by nature endowed with a combative spirit, in many a fray, he saw that to cropping his long ears he owed avoidance of many a subject for tears. Rough dogs, when they fight, bite their enemies' ears. For hostile mastiffs his were best of all. 'Tis easy to defend one opening in a wall. Armed with a collar and with ears but small, our young dog meets his foes, fights, and defeats them all. End of Fable 202. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 203 and 204 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. The Two Parrots, the Monarch, and his Son. A parrot and his child, 'tis said, on royal dishes daily fed, having the affections won of a monarch and his son. An equal age made either pair affection for each other bear. The fathers gravely loved each other, and their chicks, though wild and young, at school or play together clung. As fondest brother unto brother, that a paroquet thus by the son of a king should be loved, need we say, was a wonderful thing. Now the fates had endowed this young heir to the throne with a love for all creatures that he called his own. And a sparrow, by arts which caused prudes to despise her, had contrived how to make this great monarch's son prize her. And so it chanced, alack, one day, that the rivals twain at play fell into a desperate rage, and the youthful parrot, stung by some taunt the sparrow flung, attacked and sent her dying to her cage. And then the prince with equal fury seized the slayer, snatched, and in a death grip squeezed. Soon to the parrot father's ears the tidings came, and then the heir was tortured by his wild despair, but naught availed, or moans or tears, for his child was lying still, inanimate, with voiceless bill. Then from his woe the bird awoke, and with a cruel double stroke tore out the wretched prince's eyes. This done, unto a pine he flies, and on its topmost branch he knows what joy from satiate vengeance flows. Runs then the king to him and cries, "Come down, my friend, our tears are vain. In love let's bury woe and hate. This wretchedness, 'tis very plain, comes from my son, or rather fate had long since writ her stern decree. Your son should die, and mine not see, and that we parents twain should live disconsolate." On this the father bird replied, "Too great a wrong us twain divide, nor can I think he'll smother hate who heathenishly speaks of fate. But whether it be Providence or fate that rules our lives, I'm sure that I will never move from hence till tempted by some wood secure. I know that in a kingly breast vengeance for a time may rest, but kings are also like the gods, and soon or late you feel their rods. I can scarcely trust you far, though sincere you think you are, but you are losing time below, for with my will I'll never go. And trust me, hate like love is best, by absence lullabied to rest." Fable 204. The Peasant of the Danube. To judge by appearances only is wrong. The maxim is true, if not very new, and by means of a mouse I have taught it in song. But to prove it at present I'll change my note, and with Aesop and Socrates also I'll quote a boor whom Marcus Aurelius drew, and left us a portrait both faithful and true. The first are old friends, but the other, unknown, is sufficiently well in this miniature shown. His chin was clothed with a mighty beard, and all his body so thickly furred, that much he resembled a grizzly bear, one that had never known mother's care. 'Neath eyebrows shaggy, two piercing eyes glared in a way more fierce than wise, whilst ill-shaped lips and a crooked nose the sum of his facial beauties close. A girdle of goatskin formed his dress, with small shells studded for comeliness. This sturdy youth, at a time when Rome spoiled many a race of its native home, was sent as a sort of deputation by Danubian towns to the Roman nation. Arriving after toilsome travels, the rustic thus his tale unravels. "O Romans, and you, reverend sires, who sit to list to my desires, first let me pray the gods that they may teach me what I ought to say, and so direct my ignorant tongue that it may utter nothing wrong. Without their intervention must be all things evil, all unjust. Unless through them we plead our cause, 'tis sure we violate their laws. In witness of this truth perceive how Roman avarice makes us grieve. For 'tis not by its arms that Rome has robbed us both of peace and home. 'Tis we ourselves, ill ways pursuing, have worked at length our own undoing. Then Romans fear that Heaven in time to you may send the wage of crime, and justice in our vengeful hands placing its destructive brands, hurl swift o'er you the endless waves of war and make you fettered slaves. Why should we be slaves to you? What isn't that you can better do than the poor tribes you scourge with war? Why trouble lives that tranquil are? Before you came we fed in peace our flocks and reaped our fields' increase. What to the Germans have you taught, courageous they and quick of thought? Had avarice been their only aim, they might have played a different game, and now have held the world in chains. But ah, believe me, they would not have scourged your race with needless pains, had victory been now their lot. The cruelties by your prefects wrought can scarce be ever borne in thought. Us e'en your Roman altars scare, for your gods' eyes are everywhere. The gods, alas, 'tis thanks to you that naught but horror meets their view, that they themselves are scoffed and jeered at, and all but avarice is sneered at. Of all the cruel men you sent to rule our towns, not one's content. They seize our lands, they make us toil, and even our little huts they spoil. Oh, call them back, our boors refuse to till the fields for others' use. We quit our homes and to the mountains fly. No tender wife now bears us company. With wolves and bears we pass our lives away. For who would children rear for Rome to slay? And oh, the terrors of your prefects bring one added horror, for a hateful thing, unknown before, has now spread far and wide throughout our native land, infanticide. Call back your men, or else the German race from day to day in vice will grow apace. But why should I come here to make appeal? The selfsame vices spoil your commonweal. At Rome, as on the Danube's banks, the way to gain a scrap of justice is to pay. I know my words are rude, and only wait humbly to suffer candor's usual fate. The half-wild peasant paused, and all astonished that such words could fall from lips uncouth, and that such sense, large-heartedness, and eloquence could dwell within a savage man, proclaimed him a patrician. The Danube's prefects were recalled, and others in their place installed, and more than this, the Senate made a copy of the peasant's speech, all future orators to teach how to tell truth, convince, persuade. But sad to tell, not long at Rome had eloquence like this its home. End of Fable 204. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 205 and 206 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. The Lioness and She-Bear. A mother lion had lost her young. A hunter had stolen her cub away, and from the dawn when the gay birds sung, all through the shadeless hours of day, she filled the forest with huge dismay, nor did the night with its silent charms still the voice of this childless mother's alarms. At length a she-bear rose and said, "Do you ever think of the children dead, by your paws and jaws so cruelly slain? Yet their mother's silence still remain." "And why not you?" the beast replied. "My child is lost, perhaps has died, and nothing for me now is left but a life of hope bereft." "And what condemns you to this wretched fate?" "Fate," echoed then the beast disconsolate. "From since the time the world a world became, all living things have thought or said the same. You wretched mortals who bewail that over you fate's darkest cloud is thrown, just think of Hecuba's sad tale, then thank the gods that it is not your own." Fable 206. The Merchant, the Nobleman, the Shepherd, and the King's Son. A merchant, shepherd, lord, and a king's son, adventuring to a distant land, by waves and shipwrecks utterly undone, found themselves beggars on a foreign strand. It matters not to tell at large what chance had joined them in an equal fate, but one day sitting on a fountain's marge, they counsel took disconsolate. The prince confessed with many a bitter sigh the ills that fall on those who sit on high. The shepherd thought it best to throw all thoughts of former ills afar. Laments, he said, no medicines are, so let us use the arts we know, and work and earn the means to take us back to Rome. But what is this? Can prudent language come from shepherd's mouth? And is it not, then, true that they alone are wise whose blood is blue? Surely sheep and shepherd are, as far as thought goes, on a par? However, wrecked on shores American, without a choice the three approved this plan. The merchant cried that they should keep a school, himself arithmetic would teach by rule, for monthly pay. And I, the prince exclaimed, will teach how proper laws for states are framed. The noble said, and I intend to try for pupils in the art of heraldry, as though such wretched stuff could have a home beyond the Atlantic wave. Then cried the shepherd, worth all praise are your intentions, but, remark, the week has many days. Now, where a meal to seek, I am somewhat in the dark. Your prospects of success are good, but I am pining now for food. Tell me, therefore, comrades, pray, whence comes tomorrow's meal, and whence the meal today? You seem in your resources rich, but food today is a subject which so presses that I really must decline to put in you my trust. This said, the shepherd in a neighboring wood collected faggots which he sold for food, and shared it kindly with his clever friends, before their talents had attained their ends, or by long fasting they were forced to go and air their talents in the world below. From this adventure we, I think, may learn that for life's daily needs much learning is not wanted, but that to every man the power to earn food by his labor had been freely granted. End of Fable 206. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 207 and 208 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Eva Davis. The Old Man and the Three Young Men. An old man planting a tree was met by three joyous youths of the village near, who cried, "It is dotage a tree to set at your years, sir, for it will not bear, unless you reach Methuselah's age. To build a tomb were much more sage. But why, in any case, burden your days with care for other people's enjoyment? 'Tis for you to repent of your evil ways, to care for the future is our employment." Then the aged man replies, "All slowly grows, but quickly dies. It matters not if then or now you die or I, we all must bow, soon, soon, before the destinies. And tell me, which of you, I pray, is sure to see another day, or whether e'en the youngest shall survive this moment's interval? My great-grandchildren, ages hence, shall bless this tree's benevolence, and if you seek to make it plain that pleasing others is no gain, I, for my part, truly say I taste this tree's ripe fruit to-day, and hope to do so often yet. Nor should I be surprised to see, though truly with sincere regret, the sunrise gild your tombstones three." These words were stern but bitter truths, for one of these adventurous youths, intent to seek a distant land, was drowned just as he left the strand. The second, filled with martial zeal, bore weapons for the commonweal, and in a battle met the lot of falling by a random shot. The third one from a tree-top fell, and broke his neck. The old sage then, weeping for the three young men, upon their tomb wrote what I tell. The Gods as instructors of Jupiter's son. Jupiter, youthful, once upon a time, thought it no crime to bring up his son as the mortal ones do, and straightway this godlike one, given to jollity, love's sweet frivolity, thought it no harm maidens' favour to sue. For in him love and reason, skipping over a season, long ere the usual time, taught him to woo. Flora was first to set his poor young heart in fret, and with sighs and tears tender, forgetting no lover's trick, this roguish young hero quick made her surrender. And shortly it was evident that, thanks to his supreme descent, the other god-born children were surpassed by Jupiter's young heir. But Jupiter, rather dissatisfied in his pride, assembling his council one thunderous day, said, "I've hitherto ruled all this universe wide alone, but I feel now the weight of my sway, and would fain to my child give some power away. He's blood of my blood, and already afar his altars are worshipped in many a star. But before I entrust him with sovereign place, I should like him to grow, both in knowledge and grace." Thus the god of thunder spoke, and then, with one acclaim sonorous, a shout of praise in tuneful chorus, the echoes deep of heaven awoke. When silence was at length restored, Mars, god of war, took up the word, and said, "I will myself impart to this young prodigy the art through which this realm so vast has grown, and those who mortal were are now as godlike known."
Then Apollo tunefully murmured, "He shall learn from me all that sweet and mystic lies in music's deepest harmonies." Next Hercules, with eyes of flame, exclaimed, "I'll teach him how to tame the monsters that invade the breast, the vain temptations that infest the heart's recesses. Yes, I'll teach your offspring how with toil to reach heights and honours that alone are to steadfast virtue known." When all had spoken, with an air of scorn, smiled in reply the child of Venus born. "Leave," he said, "the boy alone to me, and all that he can be, he'll be." And speaking thus, well spoke god Cupid, for there's naught on earth more plain that he is not wholly stupid, who, loving well, does all things gain.
End of Fable 208. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 209 and 210 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Eva Davis. The Owl and the Mice.
Whene'er you have a tale to tell, ne'er call it marvellous yourself, if you would have it go down well. For if you do, some spiteful elf will scorn it. But for once I'll vow the tale that I shall tell you now is marvellous, and though, like fable, may be received as veritable. So old a forest pine had grown, at last 'twas marked to be cut down. Within its branches' dark retreat, an owl had made its gloomy seat, the bird that Atropos thought meet its cry of vengeance to repeat. Deep in this pine tree's stem, time worn, with other living things forlorn, lived swarms of mice who had no toes, but never mice were fat as those. For Master Owl, who'd snipped and torn, day after day, fed them on corn. The wise bird reasoned thus, "I've oft caught and stored mice within my croft, which ran away, and 'scaped my claws. One remedy is, I'll cut their paws, and eat them slowly at my ease. Now one of those, now one of these. To eat them all at once were blameful, and my digestion is so shameful." You see, the owl was, in his way, as wise as we. So, day by day, his mice had fit and due provision. Yet after this, some rash Cartesian is obstinate enough to swear that owls but mechanism are. But how, then, could this night bird find this craftily contrived device, the nibbling of paws of mice, were he not furnished with a mind? See how he argued craftily. "Whene'er I catch these mice, they flee, and so the only way to save them is at one huge meal to brave them. But that I cannot do. Besides, the wise man for bad days provides. But how to keep them within reach? Why, neatly bite the paws from each. Now, Could there, gentle reader mine, be human reasoning more fine? Could Aristotle's self have wrought a closer chain of argued thought?
The Companions of Ulysses.
O Prince, to whom the immortals give their care and power and grace, permit my verse may on your shrine still live, by burning there, though void of wit. I know 'tis late, but let my muse plead years and duns for her excuse. My soul is faint, and not like yours, which as an eagle proudly soars. The hero from whose veins you drew this brilliant soul is e'en like you in martial fields. 'Tis not his fault his steps at victory's archway halt. Some god retains him, the same king who once the Rhine with victory's wing swept over in 1 month, they say. Then speed was right, but now delay. But I must pause, though loves and smiles detest the verse that runs to miles. And of the loves and smiles, your court is, all men know, the chief resort. But other gods its precincts grace, good sense and reason there have place. And I must beg that you will seek of these a story from the Greek, of certain men who, yielding up their souls to folly's poisoned cup, from men to beasts were quickly changed, and in brute forms the forest ranged. After 10 years of war and pain, Ulysses' comrades tempt the main. Long tossed about by every wind, at length an island shore they find, where Circe, great Apollo's child, held sway, and on the strangers smiled. She gave them cups of drink delicious, with poison sweet, with drugs pernicious. Their reason first gave way, and then they lost the forms and souls of men. Ranging about in shapes of beast, some like the largest, some the least. The lion, elephant, and bear, the wolf, and e'en the mole were there. Ulysses, he alone escaped, refusing Circe's cup to drain. And as his form was finely shaped, and godlike wisdom graced his mind, the goddess sought his soul to gain by poisoned draughts of varied kind. In fact, like any turtle dove, the goddess cooed and told her love. Ulysses was too circumspect such coign of vantage to neglect, and begged that all his comrades should resume their manhood's natural mould. "Yes," said the nymph, "it shall be so. If they desire, you ask them, go." Ulysses ran, and calling round his former comrades, said, "I've found a method sure, by which again you may resume the forms of men. And as a token that 'tis true, this instant speech returns to you." Then roared the lion, "I'm no fool. Your offer really is too cool. What, throw away my claws and teeth, with which I tear my foes to death? No, now I'm king. In Grecian land I should a private soldier stand. You're very kind, but let me rest. I choose to be a regal beast." Much with this rough-roared speech distressed, Ulysses next the bear addressed, and said, "My brother, what a sight are you, who once were trim and slight." The bear replied in accents gruff, "I'm like a bear, that's quite enough. Who shall decide, I'd like to know, sir, that one form's fine, another grosser? Who made of man the judge of bears? With fair dames now I've love affairs. You do not like my shape? 'Tis well. Pass on, content and free I dwell within these woods, and flatly say, I scorn mankind, and here shall stay." The prince the wolf accosted then, and lest refusal came again, said, "Comrade, I'm in deep distress, for there's a lovely shepherdess who echo wearies out with cries against your wolfish gluttonies. In former days your task had been her sheep from every wolf to screen. You led an honest life. Oh, come, and once more manhood's form resume." "No, no," replied the wolf, "I'll stay. A ravenous wolf you call me. Pray, if I the sheep had eaten not, would they have 'scaped your spit and pot? If I were man, should I be less a foe unto the shepherdess? For just a word or slight mistake, you men each other's heads will break. And are you not then wolfish too? I've weighed the case, and hold it true, that wolves are better far than man. I'll be a wolf then, whilst I can. To all in turn Ulysses went, and used this selfsame argument. But all, both great and small, refused to be of beast life disabused. To range the woods, to feed and love, to them seemed all things else above. Let others reap the praise, they cried, of noble deeds, we're satisfied. And so, fast bound in pleasure's chains, they thought that free they roamed the plains. O Prince, I much had wished to choose a tale which might teach and amuse. The scheme itself was not so bad, but where could such a tale be had? I pondered long, at length the fate of Circe's victims struck my pate. Such victims in this world below were always, and are even now. To punish them I will not strike, but hold them up to your dislike.
End of Fable 210. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 211 and 212 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 211. The Farmer, the Dog, and the Fox. The wolf and the fox are neighbors strange, and within their reach I'd not build my grange. One of the latter had long espied the fowls of a farmer, but though he tried each art of his cunning, the hens were still safe from the jaws of the midnight ranger. Perplexed as he was 'twixt his hungry will and the wholesome dread of impending danger, "Alas," he cried, "it is fine, forsooth, that wretches like these should mock me. I come and I go, and I whet my tooth, and with brilliant schemes I stock me. And all this time that horrible lout, the farmer, makes money week in, week out, of chicken and capon, or roasts or boils, whilst I, who surpass him in wit and sense, would be glad if I could but carry from hence the toughest old hen, as reward for my toils. By the gods above and the gods below, omnipotent Jove, I should like to know. And I will know, too, why you made me a fox, to suffer such troubles and impudent mocks." So breathing his vengeance, Sir Sly Fox chose a night when the world was bathed in repose, when the farmer, his servants, and even his dogs, cocks, chickens, and hens, slept as sound as logs. Now the farmer himself, with a folly extreme, had left the door open ere he went to dream, and the consequence was that the fox entered in it, and its feathered inhabitants slew in a minute. When the morrow's new-born sun, all the slaughter that was done, struck the eye with huge dismay, and almost made the sun avert his rising ray. 'Twas a parallel, in fact, with Apollo's direful act, when with Atreus' son enraged, with the Greeks such war he waged, that great hillocks of the slain lay heaped high upon the plain. Not unlike the ghastly scene when great Ajax, filled with spleen, flocks of sheep and herds of oxen madly slew, dreaming that he smote the crew, who with famed Ulysses wise had deprived him of his prize. Then the fox, whom none could parry, having seized on what he might, thought it quite unwise to tarry, and discreetly took to flight. Now when the master rose, be sure, against his men and dogs he swore, for 'tis a common trick of masters, others to blame for their disasters. "O wretched dog," he shouted forth, "O dog, for drowning only worth, why barked you not to let us know?" "Master," the dog replied, "I trow, master and farmer, 'tis not fair That I your anger now should share." The fowls are yours, and yours the gain. Then why should I, sir, suffer the pain? Because you leave your fowls exposed To any thief that way disposed. Such reasoning we must all admit, For a mere dog was fraught with wit. But on the other hand, 'tis sure That masters can't such wit endure As Carlo found when soundly whipped For words of sense unwisely slipped. Now, fathers all, whoe'er you be, I aim not at that high degree. When you would sleep, trust none of those Around you, but your own doors close. He who would have a thing well done Should trust unto himself alone. End of Fable 211. Fable 212. The Dream of an Inhabitant of Mogul. Once on a time, in slumber wrapped, a certain peasant had a vision Of a great vizier calmly lapped In endless joys of fields Elysian. Then straightway, in a moment's space, The dreamer sees another place, Wherein a hermit, bathed in fire, Endures such torments as inspire Even those who share his fate With sympathy compassionate. Unusual this, indeed so curious, It seems as though the dreams were spurious, And to the dreamer so surprising, That straight he woke and fell surmising His dreams were ill, as some aver. But soon a wise interpreter Consulted, said, "Be not perplexed, For if to me some skill is given To understand a secret text, These dreams are messages from heaven, And mean on earth, whene'er he could, The vizier sought sweet solitude, Whereas the hermit day by day To courts of viziers made his way. Now, if to this I dare to add, I'd praise the pleasures to be had Deep in the bosom of retreat, Pleasures heavenly, pure, and sweet. O solitude, I know your charms, O night, I ever in your breast, Far, far from all the world's alarms, By balmy air would still be blessed. Oh, who will bear me to your shades? When shall the nine, the heavenly maids, Far from cities, far from towns, Far from human smiles and frowns, Wholly employ my tranquil hours, And teach me how the mystic powers, Aloft unseen by human eyes, Mysterious, hold their mighty sway, And how the planets, night and day, Fashion and rule our destinies? But if for such pursuits as these I am not born, at least among the groves I'll wander, and in song Describe the woods, the streams, the trees. No golden threads shall weave my fate, 'Neath no rich silk I'll lie in state, And surely yet my eyes shall close In no less deep and sweet repose. To solitude fresh vows I'll pay, And when at length the fatal day Shall place me in the arms of death, As calm I've lived, so calm I'll yield my breath. End of Fable 212. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 213 and 214 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry, and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 213. The Two Goats. Since goats have ever clambering browsed, By nature's gentle force aroused, They've wandered far and wandered free, Enjoying sweets of liberty. Their greatest pleasure is to find Paths all known to humankind. A rock or hanging precipice Suits these wild animals' caprice. No wall can make their gambols cease. Two white-footed goats then thus inspired, And with adventurous spirit fired, Deserted pastures too well known, And chose their routes, each one his own. But though each separate pathways took, If chance they reached the selfsame brook, O'er which for bridge a plank was thrown, That scarce would have sufficed for own. The stream was deep, the flood was wide, And should these dames have terrified, But spite of danger, each young lady Advanced upon the plank unsteady. And now by aid of history, Louis le Grand I seem to see. Philip the Fourth advanced to meet Upon the Isle of Conference, While step by step, with agile feet, our ramblers with a proper sense of what was due to ancestry refused to yield for one goat she could claim that Polyphemus laid her sire at Galatia's feet, the other just as boldly said her dam was Amalthea sweet. The goat who gave her milk to Jove, who rules below and reigns above, neither would yield, so both fell down, and there we leave our goats to drown. Of moral I've not much to say, but such things happen every day. End of Fable 213. Fable 214. The Lion, the Ape, and the Two Asses. A young King Lion, desirous to shape by morality's laws his government, on one fine morning prudently sent for that clever old master of arts, the Ape. And the statesman, consulted, sagely replied, O King, hold this maxim as your very best guide. Let your own self-will to the good of the state be in all cases subordinate. For 'tis simply neglect of this wholesome rule that so oft makes us animals play the fool. It is not in one day, or even in two, that this evil self-love you'll contrive to subdue. But should you succeed, O my monarch august, you will never be foolish, and seldom unjust. Give me examples, replied the king, of both the one and the other thing. Each species has its vanity, the ape said very seriously. As for instance my own, for the lawyers call all but themselves mean, base, and small. But on the other hand, self-esteem leads us to laud our deeds to the sky, as by doing this we fondly deem that our own position is raised as high. And now I deduce from what I have said that much so-called talent is merely grimace, a trick which, as wise men know, has led many an idiot to power and place. Whilst following close, but the other day, the steps of two asses, who foolishly fed each other with flattery, I heard the one to the other say, Is it not, sir, a shame and disgrace, that the tribe of mankind, that perfect race, should profane our dignified name by denoting as asses all those that are stupid or doting? And even has ventured such lengths as to say that when mortals speak nonsense they utter a bray. 'Tis pleasant, forsooth, to perceive how mankind dream they're above us, and yet are so blind. No, no, let their orators silent remain, for they are the brayers and fools in grain. But with man let us cease one another to bother. 'Tis enough that we quite comprehend one another. I will only here add that you have but to speak to make larks seem hoarse and the blackbird to squeak. These qualities, sir, then the other replied, in yourself in the fullest perfection reside. And having thus spattered each other with praise, they trot far and wide to repeat the same craze, each fondly in hope, like a couple of crows, that a caw shall come back for the caw he bestows. But this trait is not asinine, only I own, for I myself many great people have known, who would gladly, instead of my lording each other, have said to each other, my imperial brother. But I've spoken too long, and will only request that this secret be hid in your majesty's breast, since your majesty wished me some trait to divulge, which would show him how those in self-love indulge become objects of scorn. It would take me too long to show also now how it leads to worse wrong. Thus spoke the monkey, false by nature, but it has still in doubt remained if he the other point explained. Your monkey is a knowing creature, and knows it is not fortunate to be too truthful with the great. End of Fable 214. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 215 and 216 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt, from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 215, The Wolf and the Fox. Why to the fox does Æsop ever give the palm of being clever? I the reason oft have sought, without the reason finding aught. When the wolf's engaged in strife to save his own or take a life, The fox can do no more than he, or half as much, and so I might with Master Æsop disagree. But there's a case has come to light, in which 'tis fair I should admit the fox displayed the greater wit. On one fine night it so befell that Reynard, looking down a well, the moon's full silver circle sees, and takes it for a lordly cheese. 2 pails above the well suspended, to draw the water were intended, and into that which higher hung, good Master Reynard famished sprung. Down swift he went, and to his woe found out his sad mistake below. He saw his death before his eyes, for he could never hope to rise, unless some other famished thing, enticed by Dion's silver face, into the other pail should spring, and then by sinking take his place. 2 days passed on without a visit from any creature, and meanwhile old Time had made a huge deficit in Mistress Moon's well-rounded smile. But just as all seemed lost at last, a hungry wolf the well's mouth passed, to whom the fox, with joyous hail, cried, "Mr. Wolf, with me regale. This glorious cheese you here behold, from Fauna's hands received its mould, of milk which heifer low gave. If Jupiter were lying ill, I think the god himself would crave of this delicious cheese to have his fill. I've eaten my share, as you plainly may see, but enough still remains both for you and for me. So enter that pail, placed expressly for you." Now whether this story was told well or not, the wolf, like a fool, took it all in as true, and into the bucket with eagerness got. When outweighed, of course, Master Reynard got up, and the other remained on the moonshine to sup. And yet why blame the luckless beast for tempted by some phantom feast? As easily deceived that which he hopes or that he fears, and either of the hemispheres is by each man believed. End of Fable 215. Fable 216. The Sick Stag. In a land where stags abounded, one fell very sick indeed, and he saw his bed surrounded by a dozen friends in need. "Gentlemen," he muttered, leave me, I implore, to fate, since your tears can only grieve me, and your solace comes too late." Not a bit their lamentations lasted for a week or more, while they took their daily rations from his very scanty store. Bit by bit his food diminished, under such attacks as these, till the sufferer's course was finished by starvation, not disease. For comforters of every kind some fee is necessary, mind, and nobody will give advice or shed a tear without his price. End of Fable 216. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 217 and 218 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Fable 217. The Cat and the Two Sparrows. To the Duke of Burgundy. Of equal age lived close together a sparrow and a cat, and he of fur and he of feather grew so familiar that the bird could fearlessly provoke his formidable friend in joke. To peck out eyes the one with beak pretended, the other with protruded claws defended. The cat, however, truth to say, was always gentle in his play, and though he showed his claws, took care his little chirping friend to spare. The fretful sparrow, much less meek, his tiny fury tried to wreak on Master Cat, who only purred, and thence this truth may be inferred, that friends should never, in dissension, let quarrel grow to strife's dimension. Still old acquaintance never forgot, kept their strifes from growing hot, and battle never sprang from play. But yet it chanced, one luckless day, a neighbouring sparrow heedless flew to where Miss Chirp and Master Mew had lived so long in amity. At first 'twas well, but by and by the birds grew jealous, and in rage gave vent to wrath none could assuage. The cat, aroused from hearthrug sleep, endeavoured first the peace to keep, but finding that in vain, declared, "What! let this stranger sparrow come to eat my friend in his own home? It shall not be." His claws he bared, and soon, without a spoon or fork, of Master Chirp made but short work. The sparrow eaten, said the cat, "A most delicious morsel that," and as no other bird was near, next swallowed his companion dear. From this what moral shall I learn? Without a moral, fables are but empty phantoms, deserts bare. Some glimpse of moral I discern. I've no fear but that your Grace will see it clear. For you 'tis only simple play, but for my Muse in any way 'twere toil. In fact, I'll not the truth let fall for you, who need it not at all. Fable 218. The Miser and the Ape. A man was a miser. Every one knows that his was a vice which grows and grows. This was a man that filled jars and buckets, old stockings and coffers, with pistoles and ducats. 'Tis a maxim of mine that such things left unused, I mean pistoles and ducats, are simply abused. To secure all his wealth from the lovers of stealth, my miser had built him a home, surrounded by waves with their foam. And there, with a pleasure the which to some seems but poor, to some rich, he heaped up his wealth with delight, and every day, and each night, he counted the sum, and recounted, and gloated to see how it mounted. But somehow, count well as he might, the gold pieces never came right. And the source of this grievous disaster was this, that an ape, than his master more wise, to my mind took a pleasure in flinging to seaward his treasure. The miser secure with his double locked door was wont to leave silver and gold all loose on his table untold. "Ah, ah," said the Monkey one day, "I'll fling this in the sea, 'twill be gay." Now for me it were hard to decide if the master or ape were the wiser. 'Twould be half for the ape, half for the miser. Well, as I've said, the ape one day, laying hands on master's gold, many a ducat flung away, with sovereigns new and angels old. With huge delight he tried his skill, and ducks and drakes made with a will of golden coins which mortals seem to think of mortal goods the cream. In fact, had not the Monkey heard the key within the keyhole stirred, and feared its master, every coin had gone its comrades to rejoin, and 'neath the waves with golden flecks had lit the gloomy floor of wrecks. Now blessings on each miser's head, both whilst he lives and when he's dead. End of Fable 218. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 219 and 220 by Jean de La Fontaine. Translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. To the Duke of Burgundy. In answer to a request for a fable on The Cat and the Mouse. To please the youthful prince, whom courtly fame destines entempled in my works to be, how shall I write a fable with this name, Le Chat et la Souris? How can I represent in verse a maid, who, sweet in aspect, yet still ruthless played with hearts her charms snared, as you see Le Petit Chat does La Souris? Shall I sketch Fortune, and show her deceit, tell how she gulls the world with the old cheat, treating poor self-complacent friends, you see, comme le chat does la souris? Shall I depict of all earth royalty the only one her restless wheel that stays, the one who wars with Europe's chivalry, and with the strongest of his foemen plays, comme le chat with la souris? But as I write, there comes, insensibly, the plan that suits me, if I don't mistake. I should spoil all if lazy I should be. Mockery the prince of my poor muse would make, comme le chat of la souris. Fable 219. The Old Cat and the Young Mouse. A young Mouse, small and innocent, implored an old Cat's clemency. Ramina grobis, let me live! Your royal mercy, monarch, give! A mouse so little, sir, as I, a tiny meal can well supply. How could I starve a family? Host, hostess, only look at me! I fatten on a grain of wheat. A mite my dinner makes complete. I'm thin, too, now, just wait a bit, and for your children I'll be fit. Thus to the Cat the Mouse aggrieved. The other answered, You're deceived. Is it to me you talk like that? Go, tell the deaf and dumb, not me. Old Cats don't pardon, so you'll see. The law condemns, and you must die. Descend, and tell the Fates that I have stopped your preaching, and be sure my children's meals will not be fewer. He kept his word, and to my fable I add a moral, as I'm able. Youth hopes to win all by address, but age is ever pitiless. Fable 220. The Bat, the Bush, and the Duck. A Bat, a Bush, and Duck, one day, finding home business would not pay, resolved their purses to unite, and risks of foreign trade invite. Soon with factors, counters, agents, and all the merchants' usual pageants, ledgers, day books, and all that, surrounded, they grew rich and fat. All went on well, till lucklessly a cargo trusted to the sea, and traversing a rock-bound strait, ill piloted, endured the fate of all the other treasures which King Neptune's sea-roofed vaults enrich. Great cries of grief the trio uttered, that is to say, they only muttered, for every little merchant knows that credit loves no trader's woes. But, spite of every cautious plan, the tale through all the city ran, and now Duck, Bush, and Bat were seen, ready to wear the bonnet green, without or credit or resources, for none would ope for them their purses. All sorts of creditors daily arrived, with bailiffs and writs, and the door scarce survived the continual thrum of their creditors' glum. And of course the Bush, Bat, and the Duck were intent to find means this importunate crowd to content. The Bush with his thorns caught the man that went by, and said with a sort of a pitiful cry, Pray, sirs, can you tell in what part of the sea the wealth of myself and my partners may be? Whilst that diver, the Duck, plunging down out of sight, went to find them, he said, if he possibly might. But the Bat, followed daily by bailiffs and duns, at noon all the haunts of the human race shuns, and stricken with shame, to keep quite out of sight, hides in ruins all day, and flies only by night. Many a debtor have I known, neither Bush, nor Bat, nor Duck, who even had not such ill luck as was upon this trio thrown, but simple lords, who shunning snares, sneaked always down by the back stairs. End of Fable 220. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 221 and 222 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Fable 221. The Eagle and the Magpie. The Eagle, queen of the broad sky, met, one day, in a field the Pie, in mind and language different, in plumage and in every bent. Chance brought them into a byway. The Magpie was afraid to stay. The Eagle, having dined but lately, assured her calmly and sedately, "Come, let's be social." Said the Eagle, then, "And if the Lord of gods and men sometimes is weary of the King who rules the universe, the thing is clear that ennui may e'en vex one who serves Jove. Amuse me, come, and chatter as you do at home. It is not me you will perplex." The Pie began at once to gabble on this and that, on lords and rabble, just like the man in Horace, just, good, bad, indifferent, all on trust, talking incessant and still worse than the poor old fool in the famed verse. She offers, if it pleases his grace, to skip about and watch each place he wishes. Jove knows that the pie was well constructed for a spy. The eagle answers angrily, "Don't leave your home, my tattling friend. Adieu! I have no wish to send a gossip to corrupt my court and spread each lying, false report. I hate a gossip." Quite content, Maggie cared little where she went. To dwell among the gods or kings is not the pleasantest of things. That honour has its pangs also. Detractors, spies, and many a foe, gracious and bland enough in face, but false in heart, infest each place, and make you odious. In courts wear coats of two colours, or take care. Fable 222. The quarrel of the dogs and the cats, and, also, that of the cats and the mice. Discord has always ruled this universe. Our world of this could many facts rehearse. This goddess over countless subjects reigns. The elements not Jupiter himself restrains. Nor these four potentates alone wage war. In many races there's a ceaseless jar. A house once full of dogs and cats grew free of strife at last by many a grave decree. The master fixed their hours in every meal, and let the quarrelsome his horsewhip feel. They live at last like cousins, almost brothers, and furnish quite examples to all others. At length peace ended. Some stray tempting bone, some broth, or little preference to one shown, made both belligerent, half crazy run to plead the grievous injury that's done. I've heard that learned writers of old law attribute this to some small legal flaw. Be what it might, they both made angry claims, and set the kitchen and the hall in flames. Some loud for dog, and some for cat cried out. The cats went mewing, the dogs whined about. They deafened every one. Cat's advocate referred to the decree, and the debate ceased at that word. But still they searched in vain where it was hid, and sought again. The mice had eaten it. Then lo, once more the mice were sufferers. Many, many a score the old cat swallowed. Some with cruel claws expounded to the mice their code of laws, laid ambuscades, caught them in many ways, and from their master obtained food and praise. Mais un mouton, not beneath the skies, lives there a creature without enemies. 'Tis nature's law, and how is purblind man the secret of God's mysteries to scan? It is God's will, further I do not go. We waste our time in trying but to know. Man is, at 60 years, a wondering fool, fit to be whipped, and sent again to school. End of Fable 222. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 223 and 224 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Roger Mathewson, Exeter, England, April 2017. Fable 223. Love and Folly. All is mysterious with love, his bow and arrow, torch and wings. 'Tis not a day's work in a grove to master these momentous things. Explain them my poor muse cannot. My object is but, in my way, to tell of Cupid's wretched lot, and how he lost the light of day. Whether that fate be ill or well, for those whom Cupid since has met, lovers alone can rightly tell. I cannot, though I felt his net. Folly and love together played one day before he lost his sight, but yet, as people will, they strayed from friendship and got stung by spite. Disputes are really melancholy. Love wanted all the gods and men as umpires, but impatient Folly preferred it settled there and then, and gave poor Cupid such a blow that both his pretty eyes were seared, for blessed sight gave blindness. Lo, their heaven's blue brightness disappeared. His mother Venus heard his grief, and cried for vengeance like one mad, on Jove and Nemesis, in brief, on gods of all kinds, good and bad. The case, she said, was very strong. Her blind son would require a stick and dog to help him walk along. Alas, for cruel folly's trick! The gods, poor Cupid's case discussed, and boys and girls in love decide, decreeing that it's only just folly should love in future guide. Fable 224. The Wolf and the Fox. How comes this general discontent? Here is a man, for lack of wit, longing to live beneath the tent, the soldiers longing so to quit. A certain fox aspired to be a wolf, and who's prepared to say the wolf may not think luxury consists in the lamb's peaceful play? It much surprises me to find a poet prince but 8 years old, who writes prose of a better kind than I can verse, aye, 20-fold, though long experience makes me bold. The thoughts throughout his fable spread are not a poet's work, I know. They're numerous, and better said, unto a prince the praise we owe. I play upon a simple pipe, that is my talent, just to please. But soon, my hero growing ripe, the clarion will make me seize. I am no prophet, yet I read the starry signs that promise give. His glorious acts will Homer need. Homer, alas, he does not live. The fox said to the wolf one day, "My dear, I have but old tough hens for my poor cheer. One wearies of the food, but you feed well, and with less hazard. I, where people dwell, slink round, while you keep prudently away. Teach me your trade, my noble comrade, pray, and make me the first of all my race who slew a good fat sheep and took him for a stew." "I shall not be ungrateful," the wolf said. "'Tis well, I have a brother newly dead. Put on his skin." Fox took it and obeyed. The wolf then bid him not to be afraid of all the mastiffs of the shepherd's flock. The fox learnt of his maxims the whole stock. First blundered much, then studied all he could, and lastly well the precepts understood. Just as he finished, there came passing by a drove of sheep. He runs at them, they fly. The new-made wolf spreads terror everywhere, and frightened bleatings fill the troubled air. So, in Achilles' arms, Patroclus came. Mothers and old men shudder at his name. The sheep see 50 wolves, and in full cry dogs, sheep, and shepherds to the village fly. One only, as a hostage left behind, is by the villain seized. Upon the wind, just then, came crow of lusty Chanticleer. The pupil snapped the fowl, and without fear threw by his school dress, all his task forgot, and ran off, heedless of his future lot. How useless was this counterfeiting then! The changed suit hindered not the watchful men. They follow in his track the selfsame day, and when they find him, they are quick to slay. From your unequalled mind my poor muse drew the story and its moral, plain but true. End of Fable 224. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 225 and 226 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Roger Mathewson, Exeter, England. Fable 225. The Crab and its Daughter. Sages are often, like the crabs, inclined to backward step and leave their goal behind. This is the sailor's art, and now and then the artifice of deep designing men, who feign the opposite of their intent to put their adversaries off the scent. My subject is a trifle, but how wide the field on which its morals may be tried. Some general may conquer, should he heed it, an army with 100 chiefs to lead it. His plans of march and countermarch may be at first a secret, then a victory. No use in prying, when he would conceal from fate's decrees one cannot make appeal. The tide grows insurmountable, at length against a Jove the gods may waste their strength. Louis and fate seem partners now in glory, and draw the world along. But to my story. Said Mother Crab to her daughter Crab one day, "How can you step in such an ugly way? Do try to go a little straighter, dear." The little Crab made answer with a sneer, "Look at yourself. It's very well to talk, but it was you who taught me how to walk. From you and from your friends I took my gait. If they go crooked, how can I go straight?" She told the truth, for lessons that we learn from family examples last the longest. They teach us good and evil in its turn, and of the latter lessons are the strongest. As to the way of walking, let me add that turning backs has often merit in it. In war, for instance, it is far from bad, if people do it at the proper minute. Fable 226. The Forest and the Woodman. A woodman, with too strong a stroke, the handle of his brave axe broke it beyond repair. For though he ranged the forest side of proper trees both far and wide, the scanty wood seemed bare. Then to the sylvan gods he prayed, that they his steps would sweetly guide unto the spot where they had made that branch for which he sighed. To gain his bread himself he'd take far, far away, and for their sake would spare both fir and oak. Respected are their charms and age, and graceful in the poet's sage. 'Twas thus the woodman spoke. The innocent forest gave the bough. The woodman hacked both oak and fir. The groaning forest soon found how her gift brought death to her. Behold the way the world doth spin. Some men say politicians win a place, then bite their friend. Of them I tire. But should dear trees bear such rude outrages as these, and I not mourn their end? In vain I sing, it is no use, although my dart stings where 'tis hurled. Ingratitude and gross abuse are no less in the world. End of Fable 226. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables number 227 and 228 by Jean de La Fontaine. Translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Anthony Castellani. Fable 227. The Fox, the Flies, and the Hedgehog. Wounded and weak, and dripping fast with blood, a fox crept wearily through mire and mud. Quickly attracted by the hopeful sight, a fly, a restless winged parasite, came to show sympathy and bite. The fox accused the gods on high, thought fate had vexed him cruelly. Why attack me? Am I a treat? When were the foxes thought good meat? I the most nimble, clever beast, am I to be for flies a feast? Now heaven confound the paltry thing, so small, yet with so sharp a sting. A hedgehog, hearing all his curses, his first appearance in my verses, wished to set the poor beast free of the fly's importunity. My neighbor, said the worthy soul, I'll use my darts and slay the whole. For heaven's sake, poor Reynard says, don't do it, let them go their ways. These animals are full, you see, new ones will bite more greedily. Such torments in this land are seen, courtiers and magistrates I mean. Great Aristotle likens flies to certain men, and he was wise. But when such folk get full of gold, they're less importunate, I'm told. Fable 228. The Hawk, the King, and the Falcon. To Monsignor the Prince de Conti. As the gods are forgiving, they wish that the lords, whom they send to rule over us creatures below, should control the proud use of their conquering swords, and to subjects the mercies of charity show. O prince, 'tis well known that you think in this way, that you conquer your foes, but still pause ere you slay. And in this, for your one who no passion subdue, Achilles as hero was far beneath you. This title of hero, in fact, should belong but to those who do good. This was always the case in the ages of gold, but now absence from wrong of a grave character gives men the place. So far are you, prince, from deserving this stain, that for half your good actions you merit a fane. Apollo the poet, who dwells in the skies, sings already the praise of your name, 'tis believed. Fast in heaven the walls of your mansion arise, for of glory enough on the earth you've received. May the sweetest of charms that God Hymen can give, for you and the princess eternally live. For you fully deserve it. In token of this, I will point to your gifts, both of riches and bliss, to those qualities wondrous, which, owned but by few, to grace your young years Jove has lavished on you. Your spirit, O prince, with such grace is combined, that which most to prize a sweet puzzle we find. For, sometimes, esteem takes our homage by force, and then love leaps in with impetuous course. But to sing all your praises and merits were long, so changing my key in a far humbler song, I'll tell you a tale how a fierce bird of prey assaulted a king and got safely away. 'Tis seldom falconers contrive to take a new-fledged hawk alive, but one so taken to a king was made a humble offering. The bird, if true the story be, no sooner saw his majesty than straight the royal nose he clawed, and then the royal forehead gnawed. What, clutch a mighty monarch's nose? He wore no crown then, I suppose? Had he wore crown, and sceptre too, 'twere all the same, the creature flew. And king's nose clawed like common nose. Of course an uproar loud arose, such as my verse could scarce describe, from all the startled courtier tribe. The king alone was calm and cool, for calmness is with kings a rule. The bird kept his place, and could not be persuaded to vacate the strange throne he'd so roughly invaded. His master, in vain, with threats and with cries, showed him his fist, but he would not arise. And it seemed at length as though the bird, insolent creature, would cling to that feature, until the next morning's chimes were heard. The greater the efforts to make him let go, the deeper he dug in each keen-pointed toe. At length he relaxed, of his own fickle will. Then the king said to those round about, "Do not kill the poor bird nor the falconer trouble, for each, in his several way, has obeyed nature's teaching. The one has just proved himself falconer good, and the other a real savage thing of the wood. And I, knowing well that kings clement should be, grant both full pardon, so let them go free." Of course the courtiers all declared that such great mercy ne'er was shown, and had the trouble been their own, nor man nor bird would have been spared. Few kings indeed had acted so, and let the woodman freely go. They scaped right well, but boar and bird in nothing in this matter erred. But only this, that woodland bred they had not learnt enough to dread the neighbours of courts, but this small lapse may be excused in such poor folk, perhaps. The following story Pilpay places where Ganges nourishes dusk races, where a man ne'er dares to spill the blood of any living thing for food. For how can we tell, they say, that this creature was not present at the siege of Troy, a hero then, and that he'll not be so again? For we Pythagoreans are, and think that different forms we bear, at different seasons pigeon now, and then a hawk, and next a cow. At present we are men, and so through every change of form we go. The tale of that bold bird who clutched the king is told two ways, the second now I'll sing. A woodman that, by luck or wit, a hawk had seized, went off with it, to lay it at his monarch's feet. Such captures we but seldom meet, once in 100 years indeed. 'Tis written in the falconer's creed, that woodman who a hawk can catch in nest is any woodman's match. Through all the crowd of courtiers then, our huntsman, happiest of men, thrust with his prize at last secure. His fortune now was firm and sure. But just as he had reached the throne, seized with a rage before unknown, the savage bird, untamed as yet, in spite of chained foot, turned and set his claws deep in his master's nose. All laughed, as you may well suppose, the courtiers and the monarch too, such very comic sight to view. I'd give a crown, though it were new. If popes may laugh, I'm not quite sure, but kings could not their lives endure, if they might laugh not, 'tis divine. And Jove, though mostly saturnine, with all his comrades, laughs at times, enough to shake these earthly climes. And Jove laughed loudest when, I think, poor hobbling Vulcan gave him drink. Whether or no 'tis well arranged that gods should laugh, my subject's changed, with reason, for 'tis time to ask, what moral lies beneath the mask of falconer unfortunate? This simple lesson I will state: to every land each cycle brings more foolish woodmen than good kings. End of Fable 228. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 229 and 230 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornberry and read for LibriVox.org by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Fable 229, The Fox and the Turkeys. Against a fox a tree served well, the turkeys for a citadel. The cunning rascal made the round, and sentries at each opening found. "What, these fools mock me then," he cried, "and at the common lot deride? Forbid it, gods, forbid it, pride!" And this vow of his chivalry he soon performed, as you will see. The moon came just then shining out, as if the turkeys foes to rout. But he, no novice in assault, like this was not, of course, at fault, and from his bag of schemes so sly drew one to trap the weak and shy. He feigns to climb with rampant paws, and next apes death with close fixed jaws. He then revives, resuscitated, no harlequin so much elated, raises his tail and makes it shine, and in the moonlight glitter fine. No single turkey dares to sleep, but ceaseless tiring watch they keep. Worn out, they try their eyes to fix upon their foeman's wicked tricks. At last, half giddy, one by one, fall headlong, and his game is done. He puts them carefully aside, till nearly half of them have died. Then the bold rascal quickly bore away the heap to fill his store. If dangers we too closely heed, 'tis 10 to 1 they come indeed. End of Fable 229. Fable 230. The Crow, the Gazelle, the Tortoise, and the Rat. To Madame de la Sablière. I, by means of verse, would raise a temple to your lasting praise. Already its foundations lie, based on that art which comes from high, and on the name of her whose fame adoring clouds shall there proclaim. I'd write above its portal stones, "This fane the goddess Iris owns," but not the Iris who for Juno goes out with messages, as you know. A different Iris, whom the lord of gods and Juno too were glad to serve if they her summons had, when she such honor would accord. The apotheosis placed on high should show the people of the sky my Iris to a throne conducting, a throne of sunlight's soul constructing. In frescoes on the panels placed should all her life's sweet tale be traced, a charming story, and one far remote from all the tales of war. Deep in the temple's chief recess a painting should in part express her form, her features, her bright smiles, and all the thousand artless wiles by which she gods and men beguiles. Low at her feet should there be shown all the great men the world may own, great demigods besides, and even the natural habitants of heaven. For certain 'tis that they to whom men pray to Iris burn perfume. The artist's care should chiefly be to make her eyes her soul express. But to paint her tenderness 'twere all in vain to try, may be no art upon the earth resides for which a task like this provides, to paint a soul in which combine man's strength with graces feminine. O Iris, you who charm us all, before whose heavenly grace we fall, you whom before ourselves we prize. But mind, I am not making love, for love's a word you don't approve. Yet even from this rough sketch may a better likeness rise some day. The project of your sacred buildin' I've just for artist's purpose filled in the foreground of a story which is so with rare found friendship rich, that haply it may favour find with one that is so good and kind. Of friendship monarchs seldom dream, but he who gains your heart's esteem is not a king devoid of love. No, he your gentle thoughts approve, is a brave mortal who would give his life that some dear friend might live. A rat, a gazelle, and a tortoise and crow lived together as friends in a desolate place, and as they took care to indulge in no show, man failed for some time the companions to trace. But alas, for poor beasts, there's no safety from man, whatever concealment their instincts may plan. To the heart of the desert, the depths of the sea, or to heaven's own vault, 'tis in vain that they flee. The gazelle one sad day was at innocent play, when a dog, cruel dogs, whom the men treat as brothers, though beasts to assist them to capture the others, unluckily snuffed at her scent, and pursuing, led on his fierce master to cause her undoing. When dinner came that day, the rat said, "What can Miss Gazelle be at? She surely dreads some new attacks, or else our friendship's bonds relax." "Ah!" then the tortoise sighing cried, "If heaven wings would but provide such as our crow has, I would fly, and all around the country spy, to find what accidents withhold our friend, her heart's as good as gold." The crow without a word took flight, and soon had poor gazelle in sight, tied up with cords against a tree, a hapless piece of misery. At once the crow without a pause flies back, nor seeks to probe the cause, the whys, the wherefores, or the when, which makes gazelles the prey of men, nor loses time for action meant in a pedantic argument. The crow's report was duly heard, and then the crow a vote preferred, that two should speed without delay to where their friend in bondage lay, but that the tortoise lying still should serve the counter, guard the till. For whilst the tortoise step is slow, gazelles die quickly, as we know. The words were scarcely said when forth the angry crow and rat went north, to where their dark-eyed dear gazelle lay, victim of man's purpose fell. The tortoise also, not behindhand to lend to any one a kind hand, toiled thither also, grimly swearing that he his house must still be bearing. Arrived at the place where the deer was confined, Sir Gnawnet, the rat is so properly named, at once set his teeth the hard cordage to grind, and in less than 2 minutes the friend was reclaimed. The hunter coming up just then cursed like 1,000 sporting men, and Master Rat, with prudence fraught, a cosy hole directly sought, whilst crow swam safely up to tree, and dear gazelle in woods ran free. Just then the hunter, in a state of hunger most disconsolate, perceived the tortoise on his path, and thereupon subdued his wrath. "Why should I," said he, "vex myself? This beast will grace my supper shelf." And thus the hapless tortoise soon had been condemned to knife and spoon, had not the crow the dear gazelle taught how to act the lame man well. The timid deer, with halting feet, went forth the hunter's eyes to meet. The man threw off, without delay, all that his eager steps might stay, the tortoise with some other things. Of course the rat undid the strings that held the bag where tortoise lay, and all 4 friends got safe away. 'Tis Pilpay that has told this tale, and if upon the god of song I chose to call, I might prolong this quadrupedal history, and write another Odyssey. And if to please you I should take this work upon me, I should make the rat the hero, yet 'tis true that each had work, and did it too. The tortoise, though with mansion weighted, the case in point so clearly stated, that Master Crow at once took wing To spy the land and message bring, whilst dear Gazelle, with female cunning, Before the hunter lamely running, Gave to Sir Gnaw cord time to bite The strings which held the Tortoise tight. So each one in his several way Fought a good fight and won the day. On whom shall we the prize bestow? On the good heart, as you'll allow. What will not friendship dare for those On whom its gentle tendrils close? That other feeling, love, is not, Compared with friendship, worth a jot. Although, to tell the truth, its pains Distract my heart and fill my strains, It is love's gentle sister you Protect, and I'll adore her too. And blending friendship with your name, Throughout the world her joys proclaim. End of Fable 230. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 231 and 232 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Fable 231. The English Fox. To Madam Harvey. A good heart is in you with sense allied, and scores of other qualities well tried. A nobleness of soul and mind, to guide both men and things, a temper frank and free, and friendship firm, though tempests there may be. All this deserves, we know, a pompous praise, but pomp displeases you, so I'll not raise my voice, but simple be. In brief, I would insert a word of flattery, if I could, about the country that you love so dear. The English are profound, in this their mind follows their temperament, as oft we find. Deep, deep they dig for truth, and without end the empire of the sciences extend. I write not this to win good will from you. Your nation are deep searchers, it is true. Even your dogs, they say, have keener scent than ours. Your foxes are of craftier mental powers. I'll prove it by an artful stratagem, the most ingenious ever planned by them. A wicked Reynard, chased quite out of breath by the untiring dogs, and dreading death, saw a tall gallows where dead badgers hung, and owls and foxes were together strung. Cruel examples for the passer-by. Reynard in ambuscade prepared to lie, like Hannibal, who, when the Romans chased, baffled their armies and their spies disgraced. Old Fox this was. His enemies soon ran to where he lay for dead. The barking clan filled all the air with clamor long and loud. The master whipped away the noisy crowd. The trick deceived him. "Come, you dogs," he cried. Some puppies saved the rascal, who ne'er tried to climb the gibbet where such honest folk repose. Some day he'll find the gallows a rough joke, much to his loss, and while the dogs give tongue, back to his larder goes the fox just hung. Another day he'll try the self same plan, and leave his brush and four paws with the man. Tricks won't do twice. The hunter ne'er had thought of such a scheme, had he been nearly caught, not from the want of wit at all, you see. For who can say the English want esprit? But their contempt for life has often led to evil in such dangers, it is said. And now I once more turn to you, not for more flattery, 'tis true. All long eulogium does but tire I, a poor player on the lyre. With flattering songs and little verse, amuse the mighty universe, or win a distant nation's praise. Your prince once said in former days, he valued very far above all studied praise one word of love. Accept the humble gift I bring, last efforts that I mean to sing, but poor indeed, and all unformed, yet were there by new fervor warmed. Could you but make this homage known to her who fills your country's zone with sprites from Cytherea's isle, I speak, you know it by your smile, of Mazarin, Jove dear to thee, and Cupid's sovereign deity. Fable 232. The Ape. There was a certain ape in Paris. Like many other ape, he marries. He chose a wife, and then, like some bad husbands, beat her deaf and dumb, aping their ways. Poor soul sighed, and, after that, at last she died. Their infant cries, but cries in vain, and sorrows o'er and o'er again. The father laughs, his wife is dead, and he has other loves instead, whom he will also beat, I trow. He's often drunk, that well I know. From one whose aping others look for nothing good, whether a book he makes, or work performs. Yes, all, upon whichever one you fall, are bad. The author ape the worst, and of all monkey creatures first. End of Fable 232. This recording is in the public domain. Fables 233 and 234 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Fable 233, The Fox, the Wolf, and the Horse. A fox, still young, though rather sly, saw, first time in his life, a horse. Just then a stupid wolf passed by, and Reynard saw game, of course. Come, see this thing that's feeding near. He's grand, I view him with delight. Is he more strong than us, my dear? Think you with both of us he'd fight? Replied the wolf with laughter, Now draw me his portrait, then I'll tell. The fox said, Could I write, or show on canvas all his beauties well, your pleasure would be great indeed. But come, what say you? He may be some easy prey on whom we'll feed, by fortune sent to you and me. The horse, still feeding on the plain, scarce curious to see the pair, planned flying with his might and main, for wolves have tricks that are unfair. The sly fox said, Your servants, sir, we wish to know your name. The horse had brains, so said, My shoemaker has put it round my shoe, of course. Read, if you can, there is my name. The fox had store of craft and need. He cried, My parents were to blame. They taught me not to write or read. 'Tis only muddy wolves who learn to read. They read things in a breath. Our flattered wolf here made a turn, but vanity cost him his teeth. The clever horse, as he drew near, held high his hoof. His plan he saw. It cost the reading wolf most dear. Down came the hoof upon his jaw. With broken bones and bloody coat, upon the ground the poor wolf lay. Brother, the fox said, only note the truth that we've heard people say. With wisdom, what had been your case? No pain would need to be discussed. This horse has stamped upon your face that unknown things wise men mistrust. Fable 234. The League of the Rats. A mouse, in very deadly fear of an old cat that kept too near a certain passage, being wise and shrewd, went straight, without disguise, to ask a neighbor rat, whose house was close to that of Mr. Mouse. The rat's domains, so fair and snug, were under a large mansion dug. This rat 100 times had sworn he feared no cat that yet was born. Both tooth and paw he held in scorn. Dame Mouse, the lying boaster cried, Ma foi! How can I, ma'am, decide alone? I cannot chase the cat, but call and gather every rat that's living near. I have a trick, in fact, at nothing I will stick. The mouse, she curtsied humbly then. The rat ran off to call his men Unto the office, pantry named, where many rats, not to be blamed, were feasting at their host's expense, with very great magnificence. He enters, troubled, out of breath. What have you done? You're pale as death, says one. Pray speak. Says he, alas! Friend Mouse is in a pretty pass, and needs immediate help from you. Romina Groby, in my view, spreads dreadful carnage everywhere. This cat, this hideous monstrous cat, if mice are wanting, calls for rat. They all cry out, "'Tis true! To arms!" And some, they say, "'Mid war's alarms!" Shed tears, but no one stops behind. They all are of the self same mind. They pack up cheese and scrip and bag. No single nibbler dares to lag. With mind content and spirit gay, it is to them a holiday. The cat, meanwhile, quite free from dread, has gripped the mouse by its wee head. At charging pace the rats at last come, but the cat still holds it fast, and growling faces the whole band. At this grim sound the rats, off hand, with prudence, make a swift retreat, fearing their destiny to meet. Each hurries to his humble hole, nor seeks again the warrior's goal. End of Fable 234. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 235 and 236 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Eva Davis. A Scythian Philosopher. A philosopher once, who in Scythia born, had somewhat with study his brain pan outworn, made his mind up for pleasure and profit to seek repose for a time in the land of the Greek. And there he made friends with a man of the kind whom Virgil so well in the Georgics defined, a man who's a king, for himself he controls, and a god, for he blends his own will with men's souls. He found him with pruning knife grasped in his hand, pruning here, snipping there, in all parts of his land. As tranquil as Jove, here he cut off a twig, there lopped off a branch to make others more big. For nature, experience had taught him, is prone to waste in rash gifts all the wealth of her throne. The Scythian, brought up in town, was downcast, and looked at the ruinous waste quite aghast, and exclaimed, "My dear friend, lay your pruning hook down, and let nature, judicious, take care of her own. For, at best, you are taking much pains to deflower the fruits which time's tooth will but too soon devour." The old man replied with a rustical grace, "I cut useless ones off to give useful ones space." Struck by wisdom like this, with no moment's delay, the Scythian homewards at once took his way, and no sooner had got there, but took up a bill, and cutting and hewing showed wonderful skill, hewed branches, snipped twigs, and persuaded his neighbours to share in his rude horticultural labours. The result is soon told, hacking trees without reason, in summer or spring, taking no thought of season, must lead to results which no words can belie, for the trees thus instructed instinctively die. Now the Scythian stands for a symbol of those who wish all the pathways of pleasure to close, hoot hoot at ambition, forbid a new dress, and from lexicons banish the sweet word caress. For myself, though by custom not given to swearing, I'll say that, by Jove, such old dolts there's no bearing. They wish us to choke whilst we've plenty of breath, and whilst full of life's vigour, to simulate death. Daphnis and Alcimadura. An imitation of Theocritus, to Madame de la Messenger. Amiable daughter of a mother fair, for whom 1,000 hearts are torn with care, yours are the hearts whom friendship holds in fee, and those that love keeps firm in fealty. This preface I divide 'tween her and you, the brightest essence of Parnassus dew. I have the secret to perfume for you more exquisitely sweet. I'll tell thee then, but I must choose, or I shall fail again. My lyre and voice will need more power and skill. Let me, then, praise alone a heart that's still full of all noble sentiments, the grace, the mind, which need no master but the one we find blooming above you. Guard those roses well, and do not let the thorns o'ergrow, ma belle. Love will the same thing say, and better too. Those who neglect him, Cupid makes to rue. As you shall see, Alcimadure the fair despised the god who rules the earth and air. Fierce and defiant she roamed through the wood, ran o'er the meadows, danced as none else could, obeyed caprice alone, of beauty queen, most cruel of the cruel, she had been for long beloved by Daphnis. Of good race was the poor lad who doted on her face, loved for her very scorn, nay, more, I vow, than had she loved him with an equal glow. Yet not a look she gave, nor word to cheer, nor his complaints would ever even hear. Weary of the pursuit, prepared to die, down at her door despair had made him lie. Alack, he wooed the winds, she, blithe and gay, still kept her door shut, 'twas her natal day, and to her beauty's throne she spread fair flowers, the treasures of the garden, and spring hours. I hoped before your very eyes, he cried, had I not been so hateful, to have died. How can I wonder that you do deny this last sad pleasure of fidelity? My father, I have charged my heritage to offer at your feet, the pasturage, and all my flocks, my dog, of dogs the best, and my companions will, then, with the rest, found a small temple, where continually your image crowned with flowers shall ever be. My simple monument shall be near it, and this inscription on the stone I've writ, of love poor Daphnis died. Stop, passer-by, weep, and say he was slain by cruelty of fair Alcimadura. The fates at last cut the thin thread, and his vexed spirit passed. The cruel maiden came forth, proud and gay. In vain her friends beseech her but to stay a moment on the course to shed one tear. She still insulted Cupid without fear, bringing that very evening o'er the plain to dance around the statue all her train. The image fell and crushed her with its weight. Then from the cloud thus spoke the voice of fate: Love and delay not, the hard heart is dead. The shade of Daphnis raised its pallid head, and on the banks of Styx stood shuddering, while all vast Erebus with wondering heard to the shepherd the fair homicide excuse her cruelty and foolish pride. But as to phantom Ajax Ulysses sued, and Dido's death the guilty lover rued, so from the maiden shadow turned the swain, and did not words of mercy to her deign. End of Fable 236.
Fables 237 and 238 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury. Read for LibriVox.org by Roger Mathewson, Exeter, England, February 2017. Fable 237. The Elephant and Jupiter's Monkey. An elephant had words one day with a rhinoceros, they say. They settled they would fight it out. But while the matter was about, Jove's monkey like a Mercury came. Giles was, historians say, his name. The elephant, a brute ambitious, was pleased to find the heavens propitious. Eager for fame, he smiled to see so dignified an embassy. But Giles, though wise in all essentials, is slow presenting his credentials. At length he comes to pay respect, yet still shows somewhat of neglect, speaks not a word, no single mention of the great deity's attention. What care those living in the skies, if perish elephants or flies? The potentate's compelled to speak. My cousin, Jupiter, this week will see from his Olympic throne a pretty combat, as he'll own, and his court too will see it partly. What combat? Said the monkey tartly. Pooh, said the elephant, you know about the rhinoceros and the blow. 'Tis property that we dispute in a long tedious chancery suit. Elephantor and rhinocer are warring, as you've heard up there. "I'm pleased to learn their names, good sir," said Master Giles, "but, King, you err, if you think we of such things heed." The Elephant, surprised indeed, said, "Who then come you now to aid?" "I come to part a blade of grass between some ants. To every class our cares of sovereignty extend. As for your wars, my noble friend, the gods have not heard of them yet, or if they have, they do forget. The small and great are, in Jove's eye, guarded with like equality." Fable 238. The Madman and the Philosopher. A certain madman, as the story goes, threw stones at a philosopher one day. The latter said, "My friend, I don't suppose you care to work so hard without your pay. Here, take this crown. How deeply I regret I cannot better recompense your trouble. Go, pelt yon gentleman, and you may get a larger sum, perhaps as much as double." Pleased at the chance, our fool begins to throw big stones at a patrician, but instead of giving gold, the lackeys mauled him so that they departed, leaving him half dead. Such fools there are in kingly courts, who raise the laugh at your expense. But can you check their silly sports, or stop their loud impertinence? If any words or any blows of yours are powerless to hush them, just get them to be rude to those who have sufficient force to crush them. End of Fable 238. This recording is in the public domain.
Fables 239 and 240 by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury, read for LibriVox.org by Tavarish. The Frogs and the Sun. The daughters of the mud obtained help from the Star King while he reigned. Nor war nor any like disaster could harm them under such a master. His empire was the most serene. The pond queens, frogs I really mean, for why not give their honorable name, against their benefactors plotted. Shame, imprudence, pride, and base ingratitude, good fortune's children, roused the restless brood. They could not sleep a wink, to trust their cry. They would have stirred the world to mutiny. Against the eye of nature, the great sun, it had begun to burn them. He must run to arms and gather all his powerful band, or he'd be driven from his own fair land. The croaking embassies would go through all the regions to and fro, to make the whole world hear their case, and gather pity from each place. All the world seemed bent on this, that for marshes took amiss. Still this rash complaint went on, still this grumbling at the sun. Yet in vain the noise and riot. Frogs must, after all, be quiet, for if the sun is once inflamed, they will very soon be tamed, and the Frog Republic will find they've calculated ill. The Arbitrator, Almoner, and Hermit. Three saints, by holy fervour fired, to gain the heights of heaven aspired. But as the well-known proverb says, Rome can be reached by various ways. So these by different methods planned to gain the shores of Canaan's land. One, touched by the expense and care which luckless suitors have to bear, offered cases to determine, without a fee or wig or ermine. Since human laws were first began, lawsuits have been the curse of man, absorbing half, three-fourths, or all of days which at the best are small. To cure a state of things so vicious, our umpire thought his plan judicious. The second of our saints declares the sick sole object of his cares, and I praise him. In truth, to me this seems the truest charity. But sick men trouble us then as now, our good man vexed enough, I vow, capricious, restless, petulant, each moment brings a separate want. And if no other fault they find, they cry, "To such and such he's kind," spends all his days and nights in caring for them, and leaves us here despairing. But these complaints were small to those which harassed every day the heart of him who well intentioned chose to act the arbitrator's part. The plaintiff and defendant both t'adopt his sentences were loath, and swore with all their might and main his partiality was plain. By such abuse as this disgusted the umpire and the almoner, each unto each his woes entrusted, and each agreed he could not bear to be so shamefully mistrusted. This being so, they sought a glade which neither suns nor winds invade, and there, beneath a rugged mountain, beside a clear and babbling fountain, they found their friend the hermit saint. So each one, having made his plaint, asked his advice. "Your own pursue," replied their friend, "for who but you can know your several wants? To know one's self make gods of men below. And let me ask you, have you found this knowledge where vast crowds abound? No, trust me, it can only be the fruit of sweet tranquillity. Shake but the water in your vase, and you no longer see your face, but let it once more still remain, and straight your likeness comes again. Midst worldly scenes you'll never learn the love for which we all should yearn. Believe me, friends, the desert's best for him who'd study his own breast." To each the hermit's words seemed good, and henceforth each one sought the wood. Of course, there's always work to do whilst men still sicken and still sue, for lawyers and for doctors, and they'll never perish from the land, thank mighty Jove, as long as fees and honors greet their services. But in such common toils the mind can seldom its true likeness find. O you who give your lives away and serve the public every day, you princes, judges, magistrates, exposed to all the angry fates, who, when no other ill oppresses, are slain by Judas-like caresses, to you yourselves are all unknown, and if some moment is your own for self-reflection ere it flies, 'tis spoilt by hateful flattery's lies. This lesson shall conclude these pages. May it be blessed to future ages. To kings I give it, to the wise commend. How could my volume better end? End of Fable 240. This recording is in the public domain. End of the Fables of La Fontaine by Jean de La Fontaine, translated by Walter Thornbury.